Hey guys, I just wanted to remind you that 2025 is filled with hope, even if it sometimes doesn't feel that way. Hey guys, it's John here in my living room, back home after a vacation away. And I'm sitting here this morning, already had my fabulous mug of John's Show coffee, and now I'm sipping a little broth, prepping for a fast. So I wanted to hop on and talk about 2025 and why there are reasons to be hopeful, even though things seem to be quite the contrary. You know, as humans have been befraught with challenges throughout history. But what's so interesting is if you look back at our challenges are always the thing that become our triumphs. We have a challenge and we meet it head on saying, no, this is not what we're doing. This is not what we're going to have our world be. And we have that experience and we literally triumph over the challenges. And that's been shown since the dawn of humanity. We have challenges and we always overcome them. And so when we're looking at 2025, we've been set upon by challenges. And for some people, they don't think it's challenges at all. Some people think it is challenges. Some people are terrified of what's going on. Some people are worried about what the next administration of the United States is going to do. Everyone's so focused on what the negative could be. But, those are just the mental challenges that we have. The reality of it is we need to look at what's happening in the now and what are we not accepting in the now. And when we stay present and when things are happening that are contrary to our desired outcome and we act upon that, that's how we change the world. Looking at tomorrow or looking at this year ahead with the negative outlook of what might happen is not helpful in any way, shape, or form because that's focusing on the negative. When you look at 2025 and you realize that every challenge as humans have had, we've overcome them. And we're going to overcome these as well. And so looking at today as a day of creation and understanding that your part of creation is only your life, what you are being in your present moment. You cannot save the world, but you can choose to make your part of the world so bright that the world chooses to save itself around you, thus changing the world. But when you look at it from the perspective of being the outcome in the now and looking at tomorrow as the result of what's coming from the outcomes, and something comes in tomorrow that's out of your control, that's when you go, okay, well, I don't like that, so I'm not going to perpetuate that. I'm not going to give that power. I'm going to change and be a loving world. Every time we've had a challenge, we've grown from it. Every time we've had a challenge, we've come out of it on the other side a little bit better. Sometimes the challenges seem so big and so daunting, but in reality, they are just the things to overcome. It's, that rock in the river. The water heading down the river to the sea comes to a rock, and that rock can seem daunting. It can seem powerful. It can seem strong. But that water, which is you, that water never not makes it to the sea. Because that water comes to that rock and it flows around that rock. It flows over that rock. Over time, it'll bore a hole straight through that rock. But it always makes it to the sea. It always makes it to the destination. And when you keep your mindset on, no, we are creating a loving world, and these hiccups along the way are just that. They're hiccups along the way. They're growing pains. And in reality, when you've run into a growing pain like that, it's usually because this thing needs to be addressed to get to the outcome that we're creating. And we are so much better off now than we were 50 years ago, 40 years ago. We are so much better off now. And right now we have a little struggle going on with ideologies. But you hold on to your ideology. You hold on to what you believe in. You hold on to your faith, and you keep that in your mind. You'll create an amazing outcome around yourself, which then people see is working well for you. They'll start doing the same. Your human spirit is unstoppable. Like that water going to the sea, it's completely unstoppable. Every challenge we face is a choice to choose love over fear. It's an opportunity to choose love over fear and create a more loving environment. And the more we choose that more loving environment, the more we choose that more creative outlet of focus towards a beautiful world, the things that will fall away are the things that aren't loving, the things that aren't caring, the things that are antithetical to that outcome. And when you look at it from that perspective, you come to realize that you are not only a key point of creation, you are the actual pinpoint of creation. You are creating from your perspective outward. And when you create your world beautifully, the world around you will change, because the people who don't feel empowered will only be empowered by example. And you be the example, you're going to change the outlook. And the cool part about 2025 is there's nothing set. There's nothing there that is not changeable. It's a complete blank slate. And the key is in those moments of blank slate, realizing that what gets written on the blank slate is written by you. What gets written by the blank slate is written by people who are creating the world. And there are more people who want a positive world than a negative world. There are more people who want a loving world than a hateful, fearful world. Fear is a great paralyzer. They get afraid and they start getting stuck, right? You release your fear. Come back to the enlightenment the Buddha talks about when he says the secret to enlightenment is the eradication of fear. Come back to that moment and realize that in that moment you have the power of choice. Are you choosing love? Are you choosing fear? It really is up to you. So let me talk real quick about my friend Tim. My friend Tim was a hoarder, is a hoarder. And my friend Tim could have spent 2025 hiding in his house, not letting anyone in to see what his house looks like. Or he could step up, do something bold, and create his channel. Many of you know about it already. I've already shared it on my channel. He's being completely authentic, completely unscripted, and he is talking about overcoming his hoarding disorder, and he's putting himself into accountability by putting it public on YouTube. This is Tim changing his world. This is Tim making his 2025 a productive outlook, right? Let's talk about my friend Jenny. Jenny worked for a bank and had a lot of struggles with her job, and she just started her own YouTube channel about yoga and creating an opportunity for people to find out what yoga is and learn yoga from a very simplistic point of view without worried about what anybody else is going to think in their own home. And she started her own YouTube channel, and I'll put both of their YouTube channels in the description below. But when you look at what they've done, is they've decided 2025 is going to be a productive and beautiful outcome, right? 2025 is going to be a world of beauty and a world of decluttering and a world of making an experience of a life they want to live. And in the process of doing that, they're doing it very publicly. They're putting it out there as an example for others to follow. And that's a hugely important element of this, is that they are being the example so that other people can make their own personal choices as well. And that's the point of this. Both of these amazing people are stepping up into a much more amazing world because they've done it. My friend Ashley, the same way, started her YouTube channel. People I know in life are just stepping up to new levels of experience and choosing to be the creator of the experience and choosing that 2025 is going to be their creation, not the creation of stimulus of the rest of the world. Now let's talk about just the idea of staying hopeful, right? The fact that you're sitting there in your home right now and you're watching this YouTube video. Number one, you're in a home. Number two, you're able to have a device where you can watch a YouTube video. Number three, you've got eyesight and hearing so you can see and hear the video. These are all things that you already possess. They're already assets in your world. You already are creating in that regard. When we start to focus on what we don't have and how bad the future is going to be, is when we begin to suffer. It's in those fears and the anxieties that we begin to suffer. And so think of the things you do have that are positive, and recognize them. People would call this a practicing gratitude. I just say, realize that you are already creating certain things in your life, and all you need to do is slightly expand into creating something more different. Slightly expand into creating something different, something joyful, something hopeful, creating 2025 as your palette or your canvas, better yet, as your canvas. And you get to go onto your palette and you get to paint anything you want on the canvas of 2025. At the end of the year, the picture you create is going to be yours. And the more you create a more loving world around yourself, the more we can help these people who are fearful break free of their fear and start creating on their own something more beautiful. Being that loving expression only allows them to give themselves permission to be loving. And that's a hugely important factor of this, is they have to give themselves permission. The world is a bunch of stimulus coming from everybody's perspectives. When you turn off the news, your world gets easier. So many things are happening in the news that are completely out of your control. What can you control? What do you have sway over? What you have sway over is your life and what you're doing with it. Right? When you hear those news stories, and you're going to hear them, you may get them a day or so later, but somebody's going to talk about it. Right? You just start living your life joyfully, loving and caring, creating what you want. And the world will go crazy around you and all that stimulus will come at you. The only thing you can actually control is how you react to the stimulus. You can be an action hero, not a reaction zero. If you're reacting and having your emotions fly, being controlled by the stimulus of the world, you will be a part of creating a negative world. But if you stay in your own world, creating from your own beautiful perspective, you are creating a world around yourself that can only affect others in positive ways. And so only focus on what you can control. If there are things you can't control, there's no reason to suffer for things being out of your control. If you don't like the things, then do positive things and change. That's why Mother Teresa said she would go to a peace rally and not an anti-war rally. She was focused on the positive outcome rather than the negative. And if you stay focused on the positive outcome rather than the negative, then what will happen is you'll start creating that experience around yourself. Often people will say that the outer expression of your life is a direct reflection of the inner expression of your life. And I believe this to some extent. If you surround yourself with negative people, if you surround yourself with people who are always a victim of the world, if you surround yourself with people who are always creating negative outcomes and blaming everyone else for it, you're actually supporting them by continuing to support it, by continuing to be there in their moment of regard. When you step back and you start creating your world so beautifully and positively, a couple of things could happen. One, they can go, why is it getting so right for you? Which would give them the opportunity to make their own personal choice. Or they're just going to self-eject and go find someone else. Usually that's what happens. Someone who is negative, when someone says, I don't want any more of your negativity, the next thing they do is they go to the next person they can find and they point at you and they say, see what they did to me? You become the next negative story in their negative creation. So you pull back, you just be loving. When they come up and talk to you, you say, yeah, nice to see you, whatever. You don't have to engage in their story that they're telling themselves because that's what they're creating into their world, and they will always create that way unless they choose to change. And until they see an example of what they can be, they'll never change because they need to see an example of something better and make a conscious choice to create something new. And remember, in the book of John, it says, perfect love drives out fear. Love is always more powerful than fear. So you love yourself enough to create a loving world around yourself, and all the fearful things around you will dissipate because what will happen is the love will be permeating that outcome, and that outcome will be shown back to you in a loving form. Sometimes it's just easier to step back. I often talk about, looking at the picture from 30,000 feet. You know, you step back, you look at the broader picture. I talk about religion that way. There's all these religions, but they all talk about love in some form. So let's look at the bigger picture and just go to love. When you look at the world in general, there are so many things going on right now. There's, you know, green energy that's going to help, clean up our environment. Nobody thinks a clean environment's a bad thing. But the ones who are against the green energies and the clean energies are really in that process for the love of money, because they have an asset that makes them money and they don't want to release it. But in reality, they would love to live in a clean world. They would love their children to grow up in a clean world. And so, when you look at what's going on in the world, green energies are happening. Um, there are amazing ideas of creating desalination programs that will desalinate seawater and create abundant fresh water for the world. There are so many things that are going on right now. There's so many people in the world who are speaking love. And there are so many people in the world who are speaking fear, be they new age or old age. There's a lot of fearful people out there trying to scare you to believe as they do. Your beliefs are creative. If you take someone else's fearful belief, you're only creating what they're choosing you to create. You have to stay in your space of understanding that you are the creator and yet you are creating for you. And no matter what anybody else says, if you believe they're right, you're going to start creating for them. And there's a lot of people, but be they new age or old, who are only in this for the power and the control and the money. And they are using fear as the leverage to get you to get your money, basically. And when you look at the world from the perspective of, I am creating 2025 in a beautiful, loving way, and I'm not going to dive into these prophecies that say there's a doom or a gloom or an exclusivity or a hierarchy or all these things. And you come back to the idea that what you think you become, you create your world. As a man thinketh, so is he. Thought by thought, you forge your destiny. You come back to that responsibility of that power of thinking and believing your creation and reality. Then you'll stop being swayed by other people's desires to affect you with their belief. People will often tell me that I'm wrong or whatever. It never bothers me. That I look at them from their perspective, and they're like, well, the fact that they aren't open to seeing that there could be more, that they have closed their mind down to one track. I think that in that regard, they've lost the bigger picture. God is love in my mind, and so that's what I lean into. When you shift your mindset from problems to potential, everything changes, because now you're looking at a bright future and you're creating this idea of this bright future that you are choosing. But when you're focused on the problems or the issues that people are pushing towards you, you are actually empowering the problem. You get to say, nope, I'm not doing that. I am joyfully creating a life surrounded by people I love and with a clean environment and the best opportunities for all of humanity to thrive. We stay focused in that direction, we get to change everything. And the people who don't think that way get louder and more vitriolic and angry, and eventually they go away. Because that's what happens when people have those sort of angry responses. They run out of things to say because they're only coming from fear. They're only coming from either manipulating fear or simply being in fear. And when you stay in the loving state, they run out of things to say very quickly. Joshua would say, turn the other cheek. That means when they come at you with your stimulus, you just simply exhale, release your reaction to their stimulus, decide that you're not going to be a puppet in their play. Instead, be a leading actor in your own story. And you choose the story and you choose the direction it's going. It really is up to you. It always has been. It always will be. And so, my friends, as we step into 2025, keep your mind on hopeful. Keep your mind on positive. Keep your mind on a beautiful world that we're creating. Challenges are going to come, but they're just the rocks in the river that we flow around. Challenges are going to come, but every challenge that comes is an opportunity to grow. It's an opportunity to eradicate that challenge from our experience, to take it out of the stream and let the water flow naturally to the beautiful outcome, which is the sea. We have the ability in this present moment to be the pinpoint of creation in our lives. And the more of us that create beautiful lives around ourselves, the more the world is covered with beautiful lives and beautiful stories, and the world becomes a beautiful, loving, caring place. And that to me is the most important thing of this entire video, is that we have the power to create a beautiful world, and 2025 is an awesome opportunity for us to do just that. Step into 2025 with hope and optimism, and know that you are creating something beautiful. And those challenges that come along are just things that have bubbled up to be moved out of your way, like just like meditation. When those thoughts bubble up, you don't grab a hold of them and struggle with them. You let them go by. You let them flow away. And that's how we change the world in 2025. You guys have a great year, and I'll talk to you soon. See ya. Bye.